conversation I thought was
Well,
with the mayor that. Well, that's right, that's what, but I thought we had sort of negotiated and come to terms with.
when in March, I hadn't heard. Actually, she's a board member. She would know. So that would, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have to get ready to start our meeting.
Hotel taken care of.
Tony, we'll come back to that. Ms. James, would you go ahead and call the roll of the council?
The Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Linda J. Davis.
Present.
The Honorable James Whitmore.
Present.
The Honorable Hattie Portis Jones.
Present.
The Honorable Ulysses J. Smallwood.
Present.
The Honorable Alex Heath.
Present.
Honorable Pat Palin.
Present.
Mayor Yapple.
Okay. Give me 1 second, I'm on the wrong agenda. Go ahead, Mr. City Administrator, would you go ahead to our first
The
agenda
first
item?
item is the Benefit Renewal 2023. Human Resources will be making the presentation.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Thank you all so much for allowing me to stand before you on tonight. The agenda item before you tonight is representative of our 2023 benefits renewal. Each year, city administration, along with our broker, which is BKS, and the Human Resources Department, we get together to make sure that our benefit plan options are affordable and certainly are aligned with ensuring that our employees are healthy and that they are well. So tonight, who will be facilitating this presentation for you tonight will be members of our BKS team. Karen Mitchell will be the person that will facilitate our benefits options.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Apologize, I'm a little frazzled. I left Charlotte early this morning and hit a little bit more traffic than I intended. So, not having presented to your team, your board before, please feel free to interrupt me or ask questions so that I don't omit or drag out. The renewal for the city was based upon your loss ratio, which is your premiums to your claims. Renewal was based, the loss ratio was based upon 111.4%, meaning that for each dollar that was paid in premium, you had $1.11 worth of claims. So that put us in a situation, having done our own projections with our underwriters, that we knew that we could probably expect a significant renewal in the close to 30% range. With respect to what we call trend, which is the increase to the cost of benefits on itself, medical and prescription drug trend, is running at about 10% on average. So when you take the loss ratio and the trend, that compiles that. An ideal loss ratio where we might expect a pass renewal would be about 70%. So tearing that apart a bit further, we get into the claims. The city of Fairburn had a major claim that was $1.2 million. that participant, that member is no longer on the plan, and that was not factored into the renewal this year. Having said that, there are a number of significant claimants that are expected to be ongoing, going forward. And this is the main driver for the renewal. Next, please. The initial renewal from United Healthcare came in at 29.5% above current. United Healthcare includes what's called a bundling discount. So just by offering voluntary dental and vision, you receive a 2.5% discount. For the city, last year, that was about $49,000. The amount of the initial renewal came in at about $604,000 over current. We were instructed by Human Resources to go to market, which was prudent, on the medical, the dental, and vision, in the hopes that we could use that as a negotiating tool, which we did. That, in conjunction with the largest claim that you had currently on your plan, which was a double transplant, pending double transplant individual who recently came off the plan. The reserves for that person alone were in the millions. So we were actually able to come back with United to an 11.4% renewal. But using competitive information that we'll go into further, we were able to reduce that renewal to $411,000 off that original number, which is significant. That's really based upon three factors. One is the large claimant that literally just came off of the plan. The fact that United Healthcare, if they lose you, that's not good for them. They're not going to ever make that up because the loss ratio with the city has been persistent for many years. And basically, they thought they were going to lose you. They did not want to do that. In addition, to support the city's wellness initiatives, United Healthcare is increasing their wellness fund from $5,000 to $20,000. And to be fair, that's because the human resource team here has shown significant progress in adopting a wellness program. And while those dollars may seem very small relative to the claims, just having an impact on one individual can be significant. There is no increase on the dental or vision premium with United for the upcoming plan year. BKS went to market for all highly rated carriers, including Aetna, Anthem, Cigna, Humana, and Kaiser. Aetna was not competitive. However, we did get a quote from them at 16.8% over current. The program was not as rich as the current program you have today. Anthem, also, due to high utilization and ongoing claims, was not competitive. However, we did get them to release a quote at 19.7% over current. Cigna was very aggressive this year. They provided the only competitive quote at 4.6 over current, 4.6%. However, they are unable to administer your program in the same way. Your current program has an HRA component built into it, and the city pays all calendar year deductible first through that fund. And Cigna is unable to do that, unable to administer it. We looked at options to outsource that to an administrator that could, but Cigna cannot send a claim file. So it would be very cumbersome to your members to have to go through a separate administrator. Humana also released a quote, not competitive. They were 21.5% over current. And next, please. Okay. So we spoke with Human Resources and said, let's show what is the final United Healthcare renewal. What number can we reasonably accommodate? Is it 11.4, which is still very high? So we went back to United and said, there's a great deal of possibility that they will move, and we were able to reduce the renewal, as you can see here, to 8.78. That 8.78 accounts for the fact that we estimated HRA utilization at about $150,000 for the 2023 plan year, which, to be honest, is probably moderate because we don't know if there are emerging high-cost claimants. The as-is renewal premium, as you can see here, is an increase in total of $193,000 per year to the current plan. That includes both employee and employer contributions. Next, please. We wanted to look at some options. Actually, we looked at several other options as well because we didn't know what your appetite for change would be and what your tolerance for an increase would be. So we looked at extreme options, and then we looked at less extreme options. And one of those options is here. This option would have no impact on your medical program. It would only impact your pharmacy plan with United. So everything would remain the same. However, all of the copays that are in the buckets called Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 would change. So it used to be easy. I could say generic and specialty, and it's just not that easy. Even in Tier 1, you can have brand name drugs, but these are the least expensive drugs in Tier 1. So if you were to switch to this formulary, and this was an option that was presented last year as well, Tier 1 drugs would actually go down by $5 a copay. So that sounds really good. But the shift in Tiers 2, 3, and 4 would start to be significant to the average person. And in reality, we'll go through a little bit more information there to show you what that impact would look like.
Excuse me. Are we allowed to ask? No, go ahead. Yes, before you go further, could you just explain the tiers? What's the definition of the 4 tiers?
It's not good. It's not as simple as generic or brand. It used to be that way. But United explains the tiers. Tier 1 as least expensive pharmacy. It can be generic or brand, but it's usually generic. Tier 2 is a step up, so in my world, I would say those are preferred brand. Tier 3 might be non-preferred brand. These are more expensive brand name drugs, but they're not specialty drugs for chronic conditions. Tier 4, there's 2 types of drugs in Tier 4, and these are for chronic conditions like Crohn's disease or multiple sclerosis, someone who's going to be taking medication every day for the rest of their life, potentially. And within that Tier 4, you can have specialty, brand, and non. So the copays all adjust. And the member, of course, doesn't know how to tell any of that, but that's how complicated it has become.
What I would add to that, Councilwoman Portis-Jones, is that these tiers for all insurance companies tend to have a certain degree of fluidity to them. They're not static. They change over time. I can use myself as an example. I've gone to pharmacy in the last 30 days, and a prescription that was one price because of a change in these tiers in the formulary that I've been having for some time, suddenly, overnight, goes up by $40, $50. And so it has a significant impact to staff out-of-pocket expenses. So I'll just there's some fluidity there, and with the inflationary economy, fluidity tends to be upward. The cost of these drugs changes sometimes more than once a plan year.
The carriers, including United, can change their formulary as much as they'd like. United, for example, changed their formulary twice last year. And that's an attempt on their part on a fully insured program like yours, and even for programs where employers are paying for their claims on a self-insured basis. The attempt is to keep pace with the ever-changing cost of new medication and emergent drugs. So to Tony's point, that if we move to any carrier, if we had, for example, decided to make a move, the formulary would change as well. In this case,
One question, ma'am.
yes,
So with some of the proposals that the administration is coming out with, and if that is passed, where you're going to see certain drugs being reduced, then United Healthcare will actually come back and make that adjustment to the lower side?
it's possible. Carriers do adjust their formularies once a year or even twice a year, and drugs will, as they reduce in cost, so if you have a drug like Humira that comes off of patent and it drops to there's a generic now and it's tier 1, it will drop to tier 1 on the formulary. It won't happen right away, but it should, yes, it could happen.
And what you're saying is that it could happen, but in this case, with a renewal, is there language that we can put in there that if such a change comes from Washington, D.C., that we would see that versus possible?
I'm gonna stick my neck out there and say no, because they file these formularies with the state. So I think what you would hear is that for your level or your fully insured renewal, they wouldn't be able to accommodate that. Agreed. I don't like saying no, but that's the reality of it. What we wanted to drill deeper, because when you say, and you look at the significant savings here, doing nothing but changing your prescription formulary from what's called the Advantage Plan to the Essential Plan, you'd save over $100,000. And it really impacts 9 members, but it impacts members. 2 of those members are on very expensive, lifelong chronic medication. Some of your members, I think we decided 5, we drilled down to 5 members, would no longer be covered. They would have to find an alternate drug. So as an employer, that's a very tough decision, but we wanted to put it in front of you with that disruption information. Yes, it impacts very few members, but it will impact at least 9 of them significantly. May I move on?
One question. What's I'm trying to think of the word, but I'm not sure if this is the right word, but what is the total number of persons that are insured, including employee, spouse, and children?
So,
It's our total base.
yes, so you have, well, it's not reflected here because the way that we've set up presentation is the way that you're billed. And with United, if you have 1 child, they just tell us that you're in the bucket that says employee plus child. You could have 6 children under the plan. So off the top of my head, I don't know the total membership because of that. So a family could be an employee, a spouse, and 1 child, or an employee, spouse, and 8 children.
In the same bucket,
What's-
in that same bucket.
Yes, yeah. So,
The way we're charged, Councilwoman Portis-Jones, isn't by how many individuals are covered. It's how many plans are in each bucket. So the number of children you have does not change the plan cost. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry, you still got the floor.
Champaign
You
may
finished?
have the number of total employees that are covered.
Yeah, so we
Say
have,
that again now?
Ms. Champagne can provide the total number of employees that are covered in our plan,
Okay.
and that's what drives our cost, so.
So employees drive the cost, not employees plus spouse and children.
Because the cost that an employee pays into the plan is driven by which plan they choose. So if I'm a single employee, I don't have a spouse or children, my plan cost is based on one person enrolled. If I'm a employee plus one child, one dependent, that's a different bucket. If I'm on a family plan, which has spouse and children, that's a different bucket. And those different plans that I choose when I enroll in insurance is what drives the cost per employee and what the city pays.
I was asking the question because of the statement you made relative to the 9 employees, is that correct?
members.
Members. Are those all employees?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, that's the convolution of this, and that's why I was asking what was our total base, and what impact financially could that total base have on the final cost. But because of the buckets that we have, is the weight disproportionate as a result of that?
So I think the way our plan is constructed is pretty much market norm. And if you use a family as an example, if you have whoever head a household, I'll use myself as an example, right? You have a spouse, you have children. Typically, in most households, one person has the insurance plan that covers the whole household. So you typically don't see, well, you could, so I shouldn't say, this is not a blanket statement for everyone, but a common arrangement is you have an employee, a member of the household, a husband or wife, who has medical insurance, and they subscribe to a family plan, and it covers everyone in the household. So in terms of cost, if anyone gets sick, be it the employee or the spouse, the insurance plan covers that. So for these 9 people who are affected by the change in formulary, they are in a covered plan, be it the employee or, so who gets sick is less a driver of the cost than how many plans we have.
And in which bucket those are?
Because it would be the same thing if an employee got sick or a spouse got sick, the insurance would treat it the same way.
Thank you.
So if I understand you right, based on from a year ago today, we've had a significant increase in number of employees in every department. So go ahead, you were about to say something.
So we've hired staff and we've filled a lot of vacancies.
Right.
Placements.
And Karen, please help here. The driver of what we are charged for insurance is more about our claims than the number of employees.
Gotcha, okay.
So insurance, she talked about that 111%. So for United Healthcare, they're looking at the fact that for every dollar in premiums they collect from us, they're spending $1.11. So they're kind of upside down from their perspective.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
that drives whether or not they're going to increase our rates because they're saying, hey, we're paying out more to cover you.
Yeah.
You guys are paying us in premiums. And that's not unusual. That happens depending on the claims, which fluctuate typically year over year. Some year you may have 2 or 3 employees with very high dollar claims. Someone with a chronic illness requires surgery. Those can go, as we know, in the millions of dollars. You have to have a significant surgery. That's why medical insurance is such a benefit. The insurance picks up what could, in many instances, be a 6-figure cost. In the next year, you may have fewer employees that have a catastrophic illness or a need for surgery, and your claim percentage goes down. And so that's probably a more significant driver than the number of people in the plan. Karen, is that,
Yes,
you agree? Yes.
I would agree. We could impact it with influx of really healthy people, really healthy young people, and that would be helpful, but if your demographic is kind of your demographic, it's always going to.
Is there an offset to those that are extremely healthy and rarely use their health insurance?
Not individually. Insurance is a function of aggregate. So even for yourselves, you're benefiting. The reason that United Healthcare can pull from a bucket of money to cover the fact that for the last 10 years you've had high claims is because there are groups that run really, really well. And they're at 50%. I've seen them, 50% loss ratios. They don't use their plan.
Yeah.
And that's one of the
That's what
reasons
I'm
why
saying.
insurance companies give wellness funding, which
Absolutely.
our HR department has done a really good job.
Yes.
They want us to focus on keeping our staff healthy.
Healthy.
And we've got Fit February this month. Let me get that right. Fresh February, where we're trying to encourage employees to be fit, to eat healthy, because over time, what does that do? It lowers
Reduces, yes.
claims. And
Absolutely.
so that's why they're giving us an increase of about $15,000
Yeah.
in this proposal to do more health education, more fitness programs, provide ways for employees to try to stay healthy, and over
Yes.
time, the hope is that it will lower our claim rate, and that 111% hopefully will begin to decline,
Mm-hmm.
and we will reap the benefit of better rates as our claim rate goes down.
Yeah.
Yes, that's, and in fact, well, congratulations ahead of time on the increase in the wellness. But when the city of Fairburn instituted a wellness program, you know, it was extremely small. And it started at about $500. Yeah, and it has increased over the years, and that is due. And so I'd like to commend past and present employees, or HR specifically, but the wellness team over the years that have worked very hard, you know, to increase the activity. It's beginning to show, and that was the whole genesis behind instituting a wellness program for the city.
Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't see you. Go ahead, Ms. Steve.
I may be getting ahead of you, but I had an experience about an ambulance. I wound up having to pay $2,080 for a ride from here to Fayette County Hospital. And so come to find out, our insurance did not cover ambulance service through Grady. Grady is who I rode down with. So does this have ambulance costs figured in this policy?
You do, and we have something even, I think, more important, because I've had a similar situation with my son. And you have, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you have a concierge service through BKS called the Employee Care Center. And even if you have an out-of-network vendor that you have, you know, there are some controls when you have no control over an ambulance, of course. But those individuals, that's all they do. They're literally salaried individuals that work on your behalf. If you have a claim issue in or out of network, a provider who keeps billing you, they'll take that from you and work that, potentially negotiate it, or if they can, negotiate it away. So if that is within the recent plan year, I would encourage you, it's a free service of our staff.
Well, I had to pay it, and United Healthcare is who we had at the time as the insurer. And so I brought it before the people that sold the policy. And they talked, I guess, a pretty good game, but I still had to pay $2,080.
If we may, may I just get a little bit more information, and at least we can take a peek under the blanket?
Okay.
I would encourage that.
Okay.
Councilman, all I would add to that is there's probably another factor that is significant in our ambulance costs, and we've had this conversation, I think, in the recent past. The state of Georgia, the way they license ambulance coverage
Yes.
districts is a significant factor. Within a district, it's kind of a monopoly. So
Yes.
Grady is the sole provider
Yes.
for their area. And as such, Grady often, it does not benefit them financially to be a part of these insurance plans, because they can then charge
Whatever they want.
$2,000.
Well, let's charge
So
me.
oftentimes, they choose not to be, because if they were in the insurance plan, you wouldn't pay
Yeah.
Yeah.
that same amount. And so there's another factor involved that goes beyond who our insurance provider is.
Right.
It's kind of the way the system is set up in the state, and it's been that way for many years. But that drives that cost as well.
But I think this process is being looked at in the legislature. It's being identified, and there are people that are looking at breaking up the monopoly. When that's going to take place, I don't know. But there is a way, too, that you can do this, because I did it. I ended up paying $0. I wrote letters. I demanded certain things, and I forwarded to the insurance commissioner. And
The
they
state,
came, the state insurance commissioner, and they wrote back and said that I didn't have to pay anything. I was willing to pay something, but I didn't have to pay anything, and that they would not, told them not to send me any more correspondence in reference to that. So sometimes the written letter has some weight.
Squeak your wheel.
Lord.
Yeah.
we might need a copy of that.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. We looked at another option here, which is to remove the HRA and to increase the employee's deductible for single and for family. Oh, I'm sorry, can you move, or am I doing it? All right, so this option is more standard, if you will. The purpose, though, of the HRA is it gives a very low calendar year deductible to your members. They still have co-pays, and they still have per occurrence deductibles if they go to the hospital emergency room. You know, they're not huge in comparison to the cost of that, but you'll notice, you think about it twice with the per occurrence deductible. So the purpose of the HRA is to say, not every member is going to touch their calendar year deductible, but if they do, the city is going to make sure that they don't have to pay for most expenses until that deductibles hit $2,500. So it's very generous. And at that point, the member has a $500 single deductible or $1,000 for family. Most employees may not, I hate to say the word most, but most employees may not hit that deductible amount. But for those who do, the city is providing a very valuable resource that keeps the cost of the plan down. We looked at option 2 to say, what if we removed that HRA and we just said, you have co-pays and deductible. We don't have to deal with an HRA account. For this plan, it only would result in $163,000, sorry for the above current, because we're taking away the HRA funding. So you're not dealing with that anymore. You don't really see it from an accounting basis. United Healthcare collects the amount, they keep the accounting of the amount, and if there's a surplus, they return it to you. So before I move on from the medical, did we have any further questions for now?
No questions? No. Next slide.
So there are no proposed changes to the health reimbursement account, the HRA that we spoke of, unless you decide that you wanted to take option 2 and remove it. There's no changes to your flexible spending accounts that you offer. You offer a dependent care spending account of $5,000, up to $5,000, that employees can put their own pre-tax money in. And you also offer a health care FSA. So for expenses that come up during the course of the plan, if I pay a copay at my doctor, a copay at my dentist, eligible expenses at the grocery store or the drugstore, you can put pre-tax money away. The only change is that usually each year the IRS lets employees up that amount. So this year, the IRS is allowing employees to put away $3,050 if you would like to modify your plan. In addition, the IRS sets limits for how much employees can roll over funds, and that's increasing in 2023 to 610 if you would like to adopt those increases. Okay. So it is the BKS recommendation after going through a full marketing on medical, dental, and vision, and also because we were able to secure passes on your COBRA administration, your flexible spending account administration, your HRA administration, and your voluntary benefits, we would recommend that you partner with United Healthcare. For medical, the recommendation is to either renew as is or to move to option 2, just purely because that first option that changes the prescription drug benefit impacts 9 members pretty significantly. Just to note that the city did increase employee contributions last year for this last plan year by $30 per month for single and $50 per month for coverage with dependents. Prior to last year, those contributions hadn't been raised in some time. So that's a consideration. You know, do we change the plan? Are we able to absorb the renewal as is now that we've gotten it down to the point where it's at under 9%? Or do we increase contributions for employees? Questions? Thank you for your time.
I have one question. So could you just state again, if we maintain status quo, what will be our cost for the new plan year?
All right, if you maintain status quo, $193,063.
Which comes out to 8.78%.
8 point, okay.
Option 1, which follows that, is the one that, in staff's recommendation, would be too disruptive. It runs the potential to significantly impact those 9 employees, and in some instances, actually take the medications that they're taking for chronic illnesses out of the plan. And our recommendation would be that that's too disruptive to our current plan. Option 2 removes the HRA, which, from a staff perspective, we feel has been a significant factor in distinguishing our benefits versus comparable cities. We've made significant strides in recruiting over the last year due to hard work on the part of human resources, but also because we have an attractive benefit plan. As you know, most who choose a career in municipal service are not necessarily expecting huge financial rewards. What is typically more attractive to employees is stability and benefits. Being able to have a stable income and take care of my family. So if you look at option 2, there's about a $30,000 difference between the renewal as is at 8.78% and the renewal that removes the HRA to 7.4%. It goes from 193 to 163, but you lose the health care reimbursement account, which for a lot of employees covers significant out-of-pocket expense. That's a significant benefit. So from a staff perspective, we would recommend a renewal as is. We've consulted with our finance director, and he has told us that that is a manageable cost increase for us. And so that would continue our plan in essence, in the same way it has been for the last several years.
And then one other question, what's the medical cost index? How the rate of inflation in the medical industry and prescription drugs?
Our actuaries say it's 10%. That includes RX. That can change in 6 months because RX is so far outstripping the medical index, if you will. But that's what our actuaries use right for this point of time.
Okay, and when will we lock in this decision, Ms. Champagne? When would we make that decision? Mr. Phillips?
So we would bring this back before you on the consent agenda at the February 27th council meeting. So other things that I do want to just quickly mention that wasn't mentioned tonight is that we are looking to move from a 26 pay period to 24. And that's typical, that's trending amongst other localities. Right now, current employees are paying 26 pay deductions as it relates to their benefit elections, and we're looking to reduce that so that they have at least 2 pay periods throughout the year that they will not have to pay towards their benefits. One other piece that we did not mention tonight is the retiree benefit. That was mentioned through Mayor and Council maybe a few months back, maybe a few months after I got here. We are not prepared to present that on tonight because we're still vetting that. We're still looking at carriers that are willing to work with us for our retirees who invest their time, their service here in the city, and so that once they do retire, that they will be able to have some form of medical benefit that they will take with them. So as we're still vetting that, we'll come back as it relates to any recommendations that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
I asked the question regarding the medical cost index, and at 10+%, our increase of 8.78 is attractive compared to the medical cost index. Thank you very much for that information.
Oh, Ms. Davis.
Clarification. Yes. I'm looking at your sheet that's showing the employee contribution. And this would be, this diagram.
Yeah.
It has. Go to the last two to the right, the first set, employee payroll deduction, the blue, and it says like for employee only, like 46.15, and then you scroll over to the right, you have employee payroll deduction -24, $50. What's the difference between those two columns?
So Mayor Pro Tem, I can kind of answer that one for you, right here.
Okay.
Typically, the way the pay periods fall, there are 2 months within a calendar year where employees get 3 paychecks. And so typically what's trending and what's common in most municipalities is that third paycheck for that month, you get no deductions. However, every paycheck in Fairburn, no healthcare deductions, so you don't pay your deductions for vision, dental, or medical. And so that's what HR is recommending to move toward. That's why you see it's an increase, because they're going from spreading that amount over 26 checks, pay periods, to 24.
24. So pay periods will be, what, just twice a month?
Yes, biweekly.
Every other?
That's right.
They're already twice, so.
We won't change the pay periods at all. We'll
Okay.
just change the number of pay checks
Calculations.
in which an employee has the medical, vision, and dental deducted.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
Typically, every other Friday, employees receive a paycheck.
Gotcha.
The way the calendar works, they're typically 2 months out of the year, where every other Friday ends up actually being a third paycheck.
Yes.
In the same month.
Yes,
So this would allow that third paycheck to not have health benefits taken out of it.
got you. All right. Thank you. Understand now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Karen.
Shall I sit?
So with that, I'm going to ask our finance director, thank you.
Thank you.
In the context of our benefit discussion, we also wanted to engage a discussion with mayor and council around our current retirement plan through GMA and the vesting period for that retirement plan. I've asked the finance director to take a look at what the impact would be from our 7-year current vesting period to what is typically with comparable cities, particularly the ones in South Fulton, the norm is typically 5 years to vest. And so I'll let Mr. Stevens kind of speak to that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
As Mr. Phillips said, he asked us to look at what that cost would be. This is I can just tell you, coming from the outside, this is quite a benefit for our employees, 100% employer-funded retirement fund. But we stand to impact a number of employees by moving from 7 years to 5 years. We wanted to think about the reality and the practicality of asking people to wait 7 years. The cost is very nominal. If we went to that immediately, I think it's less than $5,000 for this year. If we went to that immediately, our cost for FY24 is about $70,000. In FY25, it would be about the same amount. So we think, that checking around with other cities, this is something that could be, again, make Fairburn more attractive for those who are coming to us. And we also think about our workforce. Sometimes when you're younger, you might not think about staying somewhere a long time, especially if you say, I got to stay 7 years. So again, I can tell you I've worked at a number of places where this is, that waiting period is a little bit excessive. But again, being 100% employer funded, I think it's just a great job by mayor and council to provide our employees. So those are just a couple of numbers I wanted to throw out to you tonight for your consideration. Again, if we did this immediately, we would be looking at barely a $5,000 increase for this fiscal year. We can handle that in the budget. That impact on next year's budget would be around $71,000. That's doable. And the impact for FY25 would be about the same amount. And we looked at this, we're looking at employee start dates and things of that nature to try to come up with an analysis.
So where this impacts
Clarification, please.
Yeah.
So the number of employees that would be vested at 5 years is the number he's talking about.
No, I meant the amount, though. He said 5,000, and then you said 71,000.
For FY24.
5,000 current fiscal year, 71,000 in FY24,
FY24.
and then another 70,000.
73,000 for FY25.
That's based on the number of employees that would then be vested at 5 years. So over 3 years, it comes in at just under 150,000.
150,000.
The total impact over 3 years, moving from 7 years vesting to 5 years.
Why the huge increase from 5 to 71?
It would be based on the number of employees that started 5 years ago. So in 2018, that number would be different from the number of employees who started in 2019. So they hit their 5-year mark in 2024.
Yeah.
It's a function of when your start date is.
Date, yeah.
So there are fewer employees who would be impacted in this year because of their start date. In next year, there are more employees who started that year and would then be at their 5-year juncture. Where this impacts us is in recruiting and retention, specifically for employees that are at the midpoint of their career or beyond. Those are typically your more experienced employees who bring institutional knowledge and for whom retirement considerations are significant. So if I'm 24 and I've got another 40 years to work, vesting is not a major issue for me. If I'm 44, that's a different calculation. And so when I'm choosing to take a job or choosing to stay at an employer, having to wait an additional 2 years before I'm vested versus someone else with the same job that says you can vest in 5 years, if you're in your 40s, your 50s, that plays out very differently and affects job choices where folks say, no, that extra 2 years is significant.
Well, and let me just say, from having experience of dealing with in both governments, That's a critical, and again, whatever the council decides, that's what's gonna go. But when we're looking at the number, the level of people that we've hired in the last 12 months, to be totally honest with you, that ended up actually being a factor in several employees deciding to take the job here. I'm just gonna be as candid with you as I can be, because of the fact as one employee told me point blank, was just that, you know, why would I, there was one employee I actually tried to recruit back to Fairburn. And his position was strictly, why would I come back to Fairburn with the level of experience I have, number one, and have to wait 7 years when I can stay where I am and wait 3 years? He says, I'd be willing to give you 2 years. 2 years meaning that he became last year, he'd be down to 1. And so it's a conversation on a regular basis, and I'm having it in both governments. So it's again, that would, as he mentioned, it's contrary to what we may believe, it's a standard market practice. And that, I know that's something, it may seem like it's hard to believe, but that's the difference, and that's the difference in bringing people with institutional knowledge versus people that are starting. And again, I'll keep this as clean as I can, we've already seen what happens when people don't know what they're doing in critical positions. That's exactly, that's what we can't afford again. So I don't know the way, I was trying to find a nice way to say that, but it's imperative that, again, when, you know, it's the council's decision, but this is an area that is so imperative as it pertains to maintaining great leadership and, most of all, institutional knowledge.
Mayor?
Go ahead, sir.
I started with City of Fairburn Policing here in 1971. And at that time, it was 10 years to get to locked into retirement. But when Eastern Airline came along and said they wanted me to come to work for them, I didn't even hesitate, because 10 years as opposed to 5 years with the airlines was, you know, no question in my mind. So I think doing the 5 years would be a great tool to keep our employees. I really do.
Any other member of council got it?
Well, I would agree with you, Councilman Heath. In fact, when I started, we were at 5 years. And then it went to 7 in between that time and now. Yes, I agree with you.
Okay. Any other, go ahead.
Yes, I'm also in agreement. I mean, especially from a recruiting lens. And right now, we have highly qualified, skilled employees. Our staff now is very competent. And when you have competent staff and you have good benefits, that just makes the city even more powerful, more productive, and the quality of what we do has improved tremendously in the last year. So I think we need to do whatever we can to maintain this quality of staff, because it's definitely beneficial to the city and for our citizens.
And let me just add to that, Ms. Davis, of another conversation that I have, and obviously why I wouldn't say names. I've had several other mayors and other, you know, and I guess I had to respect them for the candidates that told me, I'm going to try to hire your person in this position. I can't even get upset with them. My position was good luck between the work environment and the benefits. And there, you know, and one was very candid. I can pay the person much higher than you. I said, say when, you know. Good try. So, but I'm just letting you know, there are people looking when you've got a qualified staff. There are people, and like I said, they gave me the courtesy to tell me they were going to try to take them from Fairburn. So I can't get upset about that.
Mayor and council, all I would add to that is, not just in benefits and salary, but in everything that relates to our employee relations, work culture, the benefits we provide, the stability we provide, the way we treat our employees. Our clear focus is to distinguish Fairburn as a special place to work, distinguished from other places where you could go. I think we're well on our way with the support of mayor and council to doing that. And it does make a significant impact when we have positions to fill. Folks will come here because of what we're building in our work culture and the stability and the way we treat folks and the benefits we provide. And that will only help us deliver better services to our citizens. And that's, at the end of the day, what we're here to do. And so I appreciate the support of Mayor, Council, and just wanted to make the point that we are doing everything we can to make Fairburn a unique place to work and building the best possible staff of any city around.
If no other questions, we'll start in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Want to give time to go to the bathroom.